Patrick went way out of his way at Main Street Live. Patrick, you did a great job. I really appreciate the effort. You know, you put a lot of thought into it. Thank you.
Pass this along.
Yeah, put it down that way.
All right, so it's 5:02. I'd like to open the meeting. Thank you, Janelle.
Pass it on.
Wait, is this the, no, two different ones, okay.
Yeah, I just, one is for 2021, the other's for 2019, just so people can compare, that's all.
Do you have another?
I did,
What are you looking for?
Sent
I have
for
both
that
over
way, no?
here.
I just have 2019. I kept passing, so I.
did you get a
I got
2021?
19 and 21, yeah.
19, 21, here's 21.
They need another 21 down here, I
I
guess.
get it.
Okay.
Coming around.
Thank you. What, do you need two? Ken needs one
Ken
too.
needs one.
Sorry.
19 and 21.
You got
So
another
we-
21 down there for Ken?
Extra 19s.
So before we get into Main Street Live, we might as well move to the approval of the minutes of 9/7. Did everyone get a chance? I know they came out this afternoon. Did everyone get a chance to look at them?
Yep. I'd like
Okay.
to make a motion to approve the minutes for September 7th.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? I abstain.
I abstain.
3 abstain. And what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Want to revote that? For the car wash king? You want to? Should we revote that?
What do you mean?
Well, he came in at the same
Oh.
time. We have.
And then I was looking at you like, what?
Do we have to revote it, or can I just ask him for his vote? You're the.
What's the voting on, the minutes?
Just
The minutes, yeah.
Approved, I've read them already.
Approved. Okay, so we have 5-0-3. Whoever's taking notes on that.
Do we not? Are you taking notes? Is anyone
No, I
taking
think
Good, how are
it's,
you?
Patrick.
Great job, my friend.
Oh, you got it, okay.
Okay, so on to Main Street Live. I just want to open up by saying, you know, before this event every year, and what was it, the 5th time, to know? 5th? Large
Yeah, the
event?
5th, yeah. We did have one small.
I never, it's just my nature to have self-doubt, and I always say, no one's gonna come, no one's gonna come. And every year Walpole steps up, and I thought, from an entertainment standpoint and a crowd participation standpoint, it certainly wasn't our biggest night, but I gotta tell you, I thought it was one of the best nights that we've had, even with the issues with the food trucks, which turned out to really not be that much of an issue.
I don't think people even noticed.
They would have noticed if the other ones were there.
Right,
but
right,
they
right,
didn't.
but the lines were long.
People were going in the line, that's the only thing I
Yeah.
noticed.
But I thought the crowd was great. As it turns out, we were right that people were anxious to really get out and do something. The crowd was, the patrons were really, you know, once again, no knuckleheads. And I think we have to knock on wood for that because, you know, it's the 5th year in a row that we've had not even one incident,
Yeah.
much less an arrest. We have not even had.
And nobody was overserved.
Right. So we've been continuing to do, because the opportunity to be overserved might be there, but, you know, the people working the bars, the people working the tickets have done a
Yeah.
great job. And I just want to commend everybody that was there that night and that was helping out, and everybody did a great job. And, you know, I get kind of embarrassed because every time a band gets on that stage, they say, thank you to Mark Romeo for doing this, thank you to Mark Romeo, but I try to always say when I get up there, look, guys, I do one little part of this, and just because it's the part that everybody's looking at, there are so many people involved in making this happen. It really is a group effort, along with the town, DPW, the select board, and without any, if one of those entities was missing with Main Street Live, it would not happen the way it does. So we have to give credit to across the board that this event goes off every year like it does. So that's my statement for Main Street Live. You know, everybody has done such a great job on that, and quite frankly, I really can't wait for next year. It's gonna be awesome. So, having said that, Danelle, what do you got for us?
Well, just kind of to go on what you said, I agree. I kind of think we did have the biggest crowd there. If not, I think we had a little bit more than we did in 2019. It was a little bit different because I think that crowd came earlier, and that crowd was more family orientated than the later crowd without any children and stuff like that,
Right.
that we've seen in the past years. I think that'd shift a little bit. I don't know if that had anything to do with the football game being away. I don't know, but it was kind of,
There were a lot of
I
families
I
out
was
there.
kind of worried at 7:30 when I was looking there, and I think I might have said something with you, Beth, that, oh my God, I can't believe the amount of people here. I was almost twice as many here at 7:30 than there was 7:30 the last time we held it, which had me a little bit of a worry that we're just gonna get slammed from 9 to 11, which is usually when the busiest time is from 9 to 11.
Yeah.
And it kind of
Wasn't
seemed
that
like the
this year,
busiest
yeah.
time was really 7 to 9. Down in that area there, I think was the busiest, and the food trucks were going out straight. I do agree that it was tough that we had those food trucks come out. I think if those food trucks there really would have, it really would have made the event, because I know some people were in lines and everything, but we did have enough food. The vendors that were there, I don't think any of them ran out of food prior to 9:30. I'm pretty sure they were all still serving up until that point. And we had the last minute sausage guy come in at the last minute after we had lost the taco truck and Asian food truck and seafood, Captain Martin's. Then we lost those three, and then we lost Grandy's ice cream too as well.
Yeah, what happened with her?
She texted me at about 1 o'clock saying she had truck issues. And then, but on the other side of that, we did have that shaved ice cream, Jim
The Hawaiian
Hawaiian.
thing, yeah.
He was slammed all night, and that what was the shiitake?
Shishka berries.
Shishka berries,
Chocolate
which is a
Those are
dessert
the things
truck.
on sticks.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw everyone walking around with those.
Yeah.
Chocolate covered
He,
strawberries.
he was busy as well, so I think even though we lost Grandy's, there was still enough dessert type stuff there and everything, and there was still enough food there and everything. Beer and wine sales kind of almost about the same as last year. That went well. We had about the same amount of expense with that and everything. And then we did do, which I was surprised, but even though it was a little screwed up, and we didn't finish it, we had a lot of electronic sales.
Yeah,
I
we
couldn't
were
believe that
slammed.
from the year before. When I was gonna reconcile everything this morning, I thought we were gonna have a couple $100. We had 1,300 in retail sales.
I'm surprised it was that low.
And 1,300 was in
Ours stopped
5s to
working.
25s.
So we had to turn people
And
away.
I wanna say, if I recall, I think I had 70 transactions to make up that 1,300. So, which I was surprised, cause we didn't do that the year before, and so I guess that's something we really gotta buckle down and kind of, I think the biggest obstacle we had was internet access out there, even though I had a hotspot out there. It wasn't good enough to carry
Well,
them, so.
You know, Danell, one of the things that I've seen other people do, which kinda is the best of both worlds, is they just get one of the local banks to put a portable ATM on site. And then they run
They
their.
can debit the cash out of
Did
there.
And
we
they
have an
just-
ATM there?
Huh?
No.
Oh, I thought there was one. Oh,
No,
we're
they could
sitting-
go, no, we didn't have one on site, but they obviously could run
No,
across.
but
the
many
street,
banks,
but-
many banks have portable ones that they use
Right,
for
right.
festivals and whatnot.
Wow.
And maybe that's something that we could do
That's a
for
good idea.
Middlesex, you know, maybe they bring a portable ATM to the next one,
I know a guy does that too.
yeah, so that will solve a lot of problems and let us.
Yeah, we just,
Work on
I
cash
thought that
balances.
it must have been something
Yeah,
else. It
wait a
was
second.
across the
No,
way, so
you know what, I didn't
we
correct
kept seeing
that.
people like
Those
that.
Is that the
Those
income
are
for
old
this
days.
time?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
This is our income
Yeah.
for this event?
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is
It's
our
easy, you don't
expenses?
have to have the
Yes.
cash
So we
in your
lost two.
pocket.
Yeah.
Is that normal to lose?
You could even
All right, now I have to make a
No.
Mark Romeo
And that's
statement,
why I
which
gave you
everybody rolls their
2019.
eyes at.
Which the previous event
What do you
we
want, the
had,
government to
we
know
made about
everything you spend your money on?
That's up to them.
What about
I didn't
Venmo?
update those dates.
I wonder if we could do Venmo next year.
I don't know, like, tap to pay is very easy.
Well, that had tap to pay
Yeah.
capabilities.
Yeah.
The-
So what do we do, lose a connection, is that what happened?
It
Ours,
was-
the internet, so
was
we,
just
we
kept
probably lost like
processing.
$100
Yeah.
because it would spin and spin and spin,
Yeah.
and it would give the signature and hit done, and they would walk away, and then it would say like transaction canceled.
So it was internet,
the internet
get-
connection.
connection.
One thing
stuff.
about the beer and wine, we ran out of White Claw and.
No, High Noons.
I knew.
I know.
Well, we ran out within the first hour and a half,
Yeah, you
2
called
hours.
that, John.
I know, I
That
told
was-
you.
And the problem with them is there's several flavors, and, you know, we had them all in the cooler. and
It's hard to see.
it was horsing around, trying to get them out and
Yeah.
so forth.
You didn't, you just hand them. Here you go.
Just do
Ah.
one
Never, I
flavor
never
high noon.
asked, I never
I
asked
think
anything.
next
it was
time,
pretty
we're
easy.
gonna go to maybe
Never
just
asked.
two
There you go.
flavors of high noon.
It's too much work to struggle through that in that ice and everything, yeah.
That'd be fine.
You know what I found to be a lot of work was the extra $1 for like the upcharge for the
Premium.
premium. People were so confused because we had to explain to them what it was at the table, and then people were coming over to the table saying, "Well, I just bought a beer ticket," even though we were explaining it. Then they wanted, when they saw the sign, they wanted it. So
Who was talking about that before the event to you? And
Probably Stacy.
I happened to be there.
oh, it might have been. Was it me? And we wanted.
Someone
a
was
sign.
saying we should just have a uniform price.
Yeah, that was
Just,
me.
Just go to 6.
instead of going 4 and 6, just go 5
Go
across
five.
the board.
It was 5 and 6.
It was 5 and 6. Bud Light, Coors Light, Bud were 5.
Mhm.
And then your premium beers, your Sam,
Was
your
6.
IPA were 6. And your seltzers and high noon were 6.
I probably had 30 people pay with a $100 bill.
So
And
we're
some people
still
just buy
probably
one
doing
ticket.
well on $4 for Bud Light, right?
Oh yeah.
No, we did 5.
Well, what I'm saying is we still
It's not-
probably would do well. So if we went 5 across the board,
It wouldn't be
would
that
that
much
be
of a
underselling?
You gotta
Yes.
oversell.
It would be?
You gotta,
Well,
We
we
sold-
were
we sold
doing
out of
5 and
premium.
$6, so if we go $5 across.
But
the
it
board,
turned out that people were getting confused about it.
Yeah.
I mean, can we come up,
I mean, if we do.
could we come up with a number
I
that,
would go to 6.
6, just go
Equitable.
across the board.
I even think we need to go higher. I mean, that $6 price we had, I think we've had $6 price since we
forever?
started.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
forever.
know, so
We also
I
sold
think
out
if
of
we
the
went to
premium beer.
$8 all across the board and $5 for soda.
High Noons
I
went
think we'd be
first,
all right.
then White Claw,
Yep.
then IPA, then Sam Adam.
So
And at the end
the
of that, we had
seltzers
people
were our
looking to
number
buy
one
premium.
seller
High Noons went
across
right
the board.
away, then the White Claws went, then the IPAs went, then the Sam Adams went, and we still had Bud Light, Coors Light left over.
How can we be the only event on planet Earth that Bud Light is not the number one selling beer?
It's done. So Bud Light, if you go to any like
Highfalutin.
restaurants, like you don't, there's so many beer options. It's not like if you have a party, what do you sell? What do you get for beer? Before it was simple. You get a light beer, a lager, and maybe like a summer beer, a Corona.
Right.
Now there's so many options that people like have switched. But seltzer is a dominant force in the market now.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it wasn't 2 years ago. when we
No,
were
it's not.
doing
You're
it.
100% right.
White Claw, in 2019 was the first time we had White Claws there.
Right, right.
You know, they were just starting to become popular, and so we probably didn't adapt quick enough for it, but.
God knows
but-
that could
but
change next year.
And next year, we're gonna.
I'll let
next
you
year
guys
it'll
know
be
what it
something-
is.
Something completely different, yeah.
So it will be, you know.
Be bourbon on the rocks.
Do you have do you know how much beer and wine or liquor sales you
Yes.
had?
Yeah.
Like number of cans
Yeah,
of this and
we know how many
bottles of
cans
that
we
or what?
have and
Okay.
how many cans we ended up with and everything. The only thing that we brought, well, we did bring beer back. We probably brought back 7 or 8 cases of Bud Light, maybe 1 case of Bud, maybe 1 case of Harpoon, and that was it. We didn't bring, and a case of Pinot Grigio of 1.5 liter bottles. So
Right.
we did bring some back, but
That must
the
have,
the
that
rest
must
of
be
the
our
stuff we
lowest
did.
Okay.
return.
I was gonna say, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
yeah.
What's
Yeah.
all- oh, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, so we can do the math and figure out,
Yeah.
what the
Yeah, yeah,
average
yeah.
did, yeah, okay.
And I didn't get any complaints of like people weren't bothered by the prices, and a lot of people wanted to donate. Like they didn't want their change back. They wanted donate more.
Well, I think we have to do something. I mean, in terms of finance that everyone sees in front of you, I mean, we lost money this year.
Why are the
Well, I think-
expenses
you
so
know
much
what?
higher?
You wanna know why we lost, though, I have to fall on the sword on that one. I came in about $7,000 under my usual sponsorships this year.
I was gonna say you can see the sponsorships more.
Yeah, we were short, but you know, in the 2 years since we did it last, the expenses have gone up a ton. I mean, the expenses from 2019 to
6,000 more.
you know, they went up a lot. What was it, 21, and went up 27, there was $6,000 there. And then we did lose sponsorships, we haven't received, supposedly Middlesex said they'd give, but we haven't seen anything.
What,
And-
they sent their check a while ago, so we have to look.
We
Did
haven't
you?
seen-
I never saw it, did you see Middlesex check come through yet? We just had Walpole Coop.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Mark, do you know if they sent it to the town? I was
They
gonna,
sent it to the town,
that's
which
what I
they've done in
thought.
every year.
That's
Yeah.
what I said to know.
Walpole Cooperative Bank, that's the only check that was in my
Yeah.
mailbox. to get to.
So
We
Middlesex,
never
because I know because I
Yeah.
piggybacked with your email on that, and they did say they sent it, so I said to Danelle, it sounded like maybe they sent it to the town of Walpole and not earmarked for the economic development.
I'll look around and ask, cause
Which means it gets
they might have got
deposited
that
in
and
the
weren't sure
general
where
fund.
I
it
know
should
for a
go,
fact
so-
they sent it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, if that's the case, then we made money, if it's the
a
same
little
amount.
bit, yeah.
Why was the stage so much more this year? It was almost double, it seems like.
It went from 4,000 to 6,000.
Yeah, it's just,
That's what they were, the going rate, I guess.
that was,
I don't
yeah,
know.
it's the going rate, and it's, quite frankly, a lot of stage companies went out of business.
And what is cash for entertainment, $6,000?
That's probably, I
That
don't know how he
represents-
does it, but it's talent,
If you see down here,
tips.
the talent was 5,400, the engineer tips were 300.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
the, what's that last
I
one?
see,
can't read it,
stage hands crew.
Stage
Alright,
hand
cool,
crews
thanks,
were
Tom.
300 for two
Yeah,
of
we
them.
had,
And that seemed
Or
much higher
stage
too, huh?
hands.
So expenses keep increasing, but our revenues,
Well, our revenue's decreasing, yes, and,
Right.
and which is why it's shortfall, which,
so we can easily.
which if we're gonna
increase.
do this again next year, we just gotta get ahead of the, finding sponsorships.
yeah,
We gotta get that extra dough, and we got to, increase our beer, prices and beer and wine prices, just to kinda make it
and I'll tell you, if
to make it
was-
worth it.
If it wasn't if there wasn't any, next year, we're not gonna have as, hopefully, knock on wood, as much uncertainty.
Right.
You know, what I had to tell these sponsors is, look, if we don't have this show, if somebody says, look, we don't wanna have an outdoor gathering, it is what it is, I still have to pay everybody. And people were reluctant to spend
Well, no, it
5 or 8
represented.
grand on a
It's
sponsorship.
for something,
Now,
Mark Roman,
if they
stage
take a chance on
deposit, it was
losing
a
it.
deposit,
However,
so it was
having
part of
said
this
that,
number. That 4,000 was part of that
I
total.
can go into
I did as a
more national
$4,000 deposit
sponsorships
for the
next
stage.
year
Okay,
if I
it was probably
choose
part
to.
of that.
We always wanted to stick local. But there are a lot of national sponsorships out there available that we could go to where they understand the game. You know, Bud Light, we could get to sponsor, you know, that type of thing. So, I don't foresee any issues for next year because we will have less uncertainty. I will start the sponsorship sales process a lot earlier and start dealing with larger sponsors that can write a check for 5 or 8 grand and not worry about whether or not we have to cancel the show. That was our biggest worry this year.
I mean, I know we've been trying to get this to a point where, see, part of the problem that we have here going is that we have to build up a kitty in this checkbook, because it costs so much to put this event on that you have to have that cash on hand in order to, you know, to pay the stage and to pay the talent. And then as, you never know the rain and shine factor on it. If we have a pouring rain, we're just gonna lose our shirts that night. If nobody comes out, we'll be sitting on all this beer. We've already paid bands, stage, porta potties.
Yeah.
Food trucks are already in hand and everything, and, you can see that just totally toppling the whole thing in. And then I know the excess money that we need to do something with it in terms of, and I know we've talked about trying to build up the pot so that we could do something for downtown to impact downtown, whether it's, you know, buy poles for a banner or buy a digital sign or do something that's gonna make an impact.
Right.
As opposed to doing, you know, this year we only have $1,000 and what are we gonna do with it? Well, really won't make an impact in downtown. So we gotta kinda talk about that, what we wanna do with these funds and what the EDC would like to see going forward.
And there's a lot of options out there, like, for instance, you just mentioned one of them that I think would be fantastic is the digital sign. You know, you get an LED sign out where those 2 granite posts are, where they usually
Yeah.
put signs, you know, next to the bandstand. And if we had a digital LED sign out there, people could still, you know, what's it, $25? So you still pay your $25, but then you get into the sign rotation. And it's much cleaner.
Right.
We could do many more town messaging on that sign if we wanted to. And I think it would be a huge benefit for the downtown. So that type of thing is what we're hoping to. But you know, that's expensive. That's,
Yeah.
just to put a sign in between those 2 existing granite posts would probably be in the 30,000 range, which is okay, but it's not too grand either, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, those are the types of things that we'd like to build this account to be, like you said, if we did 1,000 here, 2,000 there, even 5,000 here, no one's gonna know
Yeah, it's not
where that
gonna-
money went. But if we put a sign downtown saying, hey, look, every time you guys came out to Main Street Live and had fun, this
This
is
is it.
part of it, this is
Yeah.
what we've done. So I think something like that's a great idea.
So that's where we're at, and, you know, I hear from people that all they hear was positive things on Facebook, and that, you know, everybody enjoyed themselves. It definitely changed the, you know, the demographics of who's attending. It seems to be getting to be a younger crowd with family orientated, and, you know, like, somebody else I heard through was, first time in town, first time in
Yeah, I
town
heard a
event.
lot of that, actually.
Absolutely loved it, can't believe it, this goes on in a town like this.
Well,
you
I'll
know?
say this, I talked to Mark over at Raven's Nest. The Saturday before Main Street Live was the busiest Saturday he's ever had there.
Mhm.
Main Street Live was absolutely out of control. And then the Saturday after Main Street Live beat the previous Saturday, which was his busiest Saturday ever.
Really?
So I think the results of filling those apartment buildings is starting to pay off. I saw a lot of faces at Main Street Live that were 25 to 35 years
Yeah.
old, that I had, not that I know everybody in Walpole, but these
I
are
feel the
people,
same way.
Right, no.
these are people that
Who
I
are all
had
these people?
never seen before.
Did Raven's Nest?
Right.
Did Raven's Nest do better with Main Street Live going on?
Yeah, they always do.
Oh, good,
Yeah.
good. So we know then Main Street Live helps the businesses too.
Yeah, we know for a fact that Main Street Live puts them from an hour wait to a 2-hour wait.
Good.
Yeah.
All the restaurants have always been very supportive of Main Street Live and the main event and everything.
Okay.
I mean, Mark even,
And one other thing I'd like to thank is Middlesex Bank. I mean, they did a wonderful job. Thank God they had that balloon guy there for the kids. They must have had a line 75 feet deep.
Really?
Probably the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
night. It was crazy.
great.
For the kids there, because there was as Ken and I were talking earlier, there were a lot more kids there than were in 2019.
Oh, there was a ton of kids there.
it was funny because it
was strange
switched over at about 8:15.
You could see it.
Well, because there was about, in front of the stage, there was an easy 20 kids dancing that looked like they were 3 years old.
That's my
Right?
daughter.
And then at 8:15, there were 20 adults dancing in the same spots, and I said,
They all just grew up
did they just go like this, and those kids just grew up all at once? Because it was like the line of demarcation for the switch between
Yeah.
3-year-old to 40-year-old was like immediate. And then that's kind of the way we've planned this, you know, we kids early and you know, adults late, so it worked out pretty well.
Okay.
All right,
Great job, Danilo.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank
good
you
job.
guys all, yeah. All right.
One
Wait till next
suggestion-
year.
One suggestion, you know how the sausage guy was there, the Fenway sausage
Yeah.
guy?
Yeah.
You should think about having more of those guys. Like, those guys are attuned to having tons of people rush at them at one time. So they had a lot of stuff pre-made.
Yeah.
So that line was always short, and that's of course where I went. But having those type of guys might make it a little easier on the food lines.
Yeah, for dinner, as we mentioned, there really weren't many options, and it's only because, not because of planning, but because of cancellations. And I think that if we had what we've had in the past, that may have eased some of that pressure. But yeah, the sausage guys were great.
Oh, that's the first place I went.
And I was talking to them, and I
did
said,
too.
and I said to them, hey, guys, we had a food truck cancel here, so hope you brought a lot of sausage. And he said, we brought every single thing we had. And they were out of there, what, 9 o'clock? They were sold out. So,
Were they still, yeah,
I
maybe
can't
it was
remember. They kept
9-ish.
coming over to us for change.
Yeah. For change?
Yeah, because they had no idea, they weren't expecting that much
That many
volume
people,
or
yeah,
cash,
yeah.
because they were running out of, they was getting, people were really bringing high dollar bills, man.
What was their sausages, do you remember?
$8.
$9.
They were $9 each, yeah.
$9, yeah. So they were looking for ones?
Mhm. Ones and fives.
I had to eat.
They could have gone up to 10, and no one would have
Yeah.
even.
A lot of people were doing takeout, I noticed. They were going to takeout and picking it up
and bringing it
and
over,
just
yeah.
bringing it
Next
over.
month.
Well, the guy at,
Well, just to talk.
the guy at Crisp is great. I went over and talked to him before, cause
Probably
on the
nappers, they
agenda.
we
all
bought
probably
some
did really
food
well.
for the green room for the bands.
Yeah.
It was
And
that night?
Chris delivered it,
It
but
A
was?
month or two. just
I told him we were having an issue with
Last 3 months, get them.
that food trucks.
It was still in the middle
And
of
so
that
he
whole
stayed open
project that
later
they
than he
were doing.
ordinarily
Oh, did
does, yeah. And so that was
They
great.
include, is
Yeah,
it gonna
what-
be an
do you know
enclosed
what their
bar?
business
What are
is?
we
In
talking
terms of
about?
COVID.
I haven't talked to
It's
him
gonna
yet.
be
And I think
enclosed.
that the trucks that are.
It's gonna have, it's gonna have a permanent structure now, I guess the town has agreed
Yeah.
to whatever he's doing.
Let's move on.
So a success.
Yes.
Date? Oh, by the way, I'm glad, I was glad to see, I read the minutes, believe it or not, and that you were appointed to the steering committee for, that's great. I'm glad to hear that.
Can I ask one last question
Yeah.
about, and John and I were talking about this, advertising. Did we not overly advertise?
Well,
'Cause
not
we
as
noticed
much
that
as
we-
we usually
Not as
do,
much,
We
but we
didn't see
did.
it on social media or anything
Say
like
we
that.
did as much. We had it going through rec a lot. The Walpole Rec Department had it. We had all the billboards up on Route 1, the
So,
electronic
more so
billboards.
social media.
Yeah. Social media was okay this year.
We didn't do any blasts or
No,
anything like
I
that.
usually do, and I was a little slack on that this year, so.
I think the thing that I'd like to improve on next year is our presence in the Hometown Weekly. Because other events get
We
huge
ran that ad-
pages.
We
ran
all-
it 3 weeks.
Yeah, we did the same thing we normally
Did
do.
you see the way they wrote it up, though?
Yeah, but normally, no, I didn't, but I know that, there's, Mara,
I mean, I was looking for it and I had trouble finding it.
yes,
It was always like on the second or third
Yeah.
page on the low right, but they also did 2 write-ups on it,
yes,
too.
they did.
And actually, I don't know, we wouldn't have seen yet what the final write-up's gonna be if somebody attended.
I just saw a thing saying, you know, save the date, Main Street Live. It was like 4 lines.
Yeah,
I think it's good to have the paper, but social media spreads so much faster.
Yeah,
A
we
lot
did-
of people
we did
come in
3 or
saying
4.
we had
No
we had no idea
idea,
this was
we
going on,
drove
but we
by.
heard it or we drove by, we stopped by. I think if we did a social media
Blast.
push.
Yeah, we do that. I mean, we had 4 or 5, I think my budget for Facebook, you know, event,
Yeah,
just blasts was like $40. We went out to everyone, Walpole, Medfield, Norwood,
Yeah, you reach everyone.
Foxborough. You know, cause you can kind of
It was the-
outline where you want it to go. And we did 4 of those, so. But Facebook is not, people aren't looking at that as much
right, exactly.
anymore. So we have to look at,
Of a certain
Instagram.
age.
yeah,
Yeah.
we have to continue to improve on that, but you're right, I mean, a lot of people, but we hear that every year. We get 5,000-6,000 people there and we still hear people, I never knew about this. So,
But it does get out a lot word by mouth too. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree, it's not gonna hurt to do more social.
I mean, the good news is, yes, we have to improve, but the good news is people are looking for whether or not we're having this event.
Right.
And that's something that is hard to get to. People are asking us, hey, is this happening? And that's a good feeling, because it just means we're doing a pretty decent job in bringing something to the town that they want, so. But yes, we need to improve on that, if we wanna grow it. Now, growing it, I don't know if we wanna grow it.
You
I was
know,
gonna say,
you know, they're asking me about more things to do with kids and I'm like, we don't even have any room on the common.
Ferris wheel.
No, but where
I'm
else
telling
can
you
we
that.
put them? There's
There's
just
space. if
literally
more
no
people come.
room.
There's
Huh?
space. If more people come, there's space, just not for events.
Where do you think the space is in there? Because when the place packs out with 5,000 people, there's no.
See, I
I'm
think we
I'm
had more
sitting there
people in
saying, if I had a
2019.
cornhole game, I'm not
I
sure
don't think
where
so,
I'd put
Mark.
it there.
I agree with that.
You know?
I mean, I wasn't able to
I
walk
mean,
around
it
as
looks
much as
empty in the
usual.
beginning until the
I
people start
didn't either,
coming
but
in.
from where I
I
stood,
didn't realize it looked more
it was
empty.
like,
One smart mom
I think
brought chalk.
seriously.
Oh, I saw the
I
chalk.
saw
on
the
the
chalk,
Oh.
yeah.
over the
Kids were all
sidewalk.
drawn on the sidewalk
Yeah.
and kept them occupied.
And we didn't have any kids this year, thanks to Danelle.
Which is true.
We
and-
didn't have any
and we
kids
can't go to
chewing
the other
on the
column.
100 amp
no.
power cables
Go to the church.
going over to the stage.
It's a little field behind the church.
They had something going on in Raven's Nest.
No, I think
But then it takes
downtown is
away-
what it's about.
I think, you know what it was? A
Centered
lady
on the
fell
columns and
Yeah.
stuff.
in the bathroom, couldn't get up. And so
Oh,
the
that
fire
lady.
department had to break into the bathroom to get her out, but she was fine.
She was at the event. She
Then
was
we have the
sitting at the
missing
table up
parents.
by the Santa house most of the night.
After she fell or before?
Before she fell. But she hit her head, right? And I,
Something
still
that she
be
couldn't
why
get
she
up, so
did
the
what
fire
she did.
department had to break in.
well, she was handicapped.
Could
She
be,
was in
but
a
I'm like,
wheelchair.
Oh,
I'm
was
like,
she?
The
oh, I'm
wheelchair got
I'm having a
in the way
meeting,
of
I'm
them,
sure I'll hear about it, but
Being able to get into the
Gotcha.
door. She was in Tessie's.
Okay.
Okay.
Alright, cool.
what do we got next? Is that everything to know?
Yep.
As far as you're concerned, okay.
So,
Patrick,
next item is a open public forum for the Downtown Walpole Rapid Recovery Plan. So it's something I've been mentioning for the past couple months, working with Circuit Eve and Destination Downtown and our plan facilitator from Stantec. So a little bit of background. So this is a grant that the town and Destination Downtown applied for back in, I want to say, late December, early January, focusing on both recovery from COVID, but then just general recovery items and projects geared towards improving the downtown. And so right now we're at the kind of end stage of putting together the final plan and the final list of action items. So this Thursday there's going to be just a community public forum, both in person as well as a Zoom option, so it'll be a hybrid meeting. Our reports is due, I believe, October 8th, so this is kind of the last kind of approach to, present the plan, get the community out feedback and such. So I can announce that. So that's this Thursday, 7 p.m. at the main meeting room or that Zoom link that you'll see on the page.
so Patrick, let me ask you a question.
Yep.
When after this meeting happens,
Mhm.
and we, I guess, hear what these different groups have been thinking about and get input from people who might attend.
Yep.
Then what?
Plan gets finished, and then the next stage is, I know the state has been wanting, there's about 130 communities that have the similar grant, and so it's kind of the same approach that every town is taking, and that data will hopefully yield new grant opportunities. So all the information that each plan facilitator has been getting with each participating community, it's more information for the state, and it can help probably bring about.
So we're going for a
additional
grant,
funds.
but is what comes out of these,
It's a plan, and then so from that we need to actually.
is that plan
develop action.
binding though, I guess, is what I'm
No,
asking? So,
absolutely not. No plan
so
is
who's to
binding.
say once we get, well, I don't mean binding, but is there, are we gonna put together a great plan, get the grant, and then spend it on something else, or are these things gonna be?
No, so I mean, this is
implemented?
kind of similar to I know there was a plan back in 2019 for
Yeah.
the downtown parking and economic development study. There was an additional plan in 2015. Essentially what it is, it's going to yield new action items. Some with items we've kind of been aware of for probably decades. Others, what we've kind of learned due to COVID in terms of, especially for small business assistance. And so from that, the research that our plan facilitator has done and that we've been trying to do, those action items will be what we will apply for grant funding to implement.
Let me tell you the only issue that, and I don't wanna have an issue, I want Walpole to be as great as Walpole can be. Before I ever even had a whimsical thought about the Economic Development Commission, I went to a meeting that we had at the library about what do we wanna do about downtown, right? And they had a group in there, an engineering group or design group, that brought people in from the town and said arcade, and it was really actually pretty good. They said, do you like this or do you like this?
Yeah.
And you almost went through this little quiz, right? And they showed you pictures of what you wanted downtown to be. And from the hundreds of people that showed up, they came up with this recommendation, this design, about what we were kind of hoping downtown Walpole would turn into, and then we were going to apply for grants based on what they came up with.
Yep.
And I met a few people there, including the former chair of the Economic Development Commission. Started talking to him, he said, you should really join, blah, blah, blah. So here I am, great. Everybody's, much to everybody's chagrin, but here I sit. And, but I'll tell you, we've had a lot of those that sound similar to this, and people do a lot of hard work. And consulting companies come in and they put together great recommendations. And Walpole Center looks exactly the same as it did 20 years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, last year, yesterday.
Yeah.
So, what's gonna happen? That's my question.
Well, you're exactly right. There's been a study done in 2015, 2019. This is something that, I came into, but when I came from Norwood, we were.
No, I'm not
applying for
blaming
the
you.
same thing.
I'm just saying, how can we,
We
not
have
what's
to-
gonna happen, how can we make it
Take
happen?
the FAR ratio requirement.
That's what I'm
of
asking.
Buildings.
How do we make it happen? Let's find a way to make it happen with the data that we can get from something like this, which I think is great, but it's not great if nothing happens.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, every town does a million studies, and it's all great knowledge. All planners love doing studies and,
Right.
and getting background information, but it really doesn't mean anything until you can actually apply for capital funding and,
Right.
and actually implement it. So, ideally, that is what I would like to do is take information from this as well as the information we have from 2019 and 2015, and search for grant funding opportunities. That's the option.
By applying for this grant and getting this grant, is it going to open up the door for more grants?
That's one thing that we've been trying to get information from the state. So we've had a few different periodic meetings with DHCD regarding this, and so that is one item that I know that participating communities want, is that usually if you go through this process, you want additional kind of, I don't want to say brownie points, but you basically want, hey, we have this this study that we implemented that should count as additional credit for receiving that future grant money. So I know that's been discussed. I would imagine that would be applicable, because if you have your background research of why you think that this task is a valid ask, or this grant application is a valid grant application, you have your background research that shows that you have looked into it and you can back that up. And usually that waves more favorable for you when you actually apply for grants to implement some of these
What kind
projects.
of capital are we talking about with these grants? Are we talking about a $30,000 grant or a $3 million grant? Because we're
Not
gonna
$3
need
million,
$30 million
but-
to change downtown, so
But you can't do everything at once, and so some projects.
I'd like to do one thing,
Exactly.
just one thing.
So
I don't know what that one thing is, but I'd like it to just happen.
I mean, it depends on the project. So I mean, one thing is wayfinding. I was bringing that up. That's kind of I would say between $50,000 to $150,000 project. Depends on how in depth you go with it. Another project is looking into small business assistance. And I know Harry sat in on a presentation from one company that offers a certain service for small businesses, where basically they can improve your marketing, your digital presence. And so what the town would do is the town would run kind of a pilot program essentially and help pay for those costs of those initial costs, and then obviously the business would take up those future payments once they find that the program or that the changes that company has done is successful. Something like that is probably you're looking at maybe $100,000. So I mean, there is a rubric we put together of just kind of like what we designate as like small items, medium items, and large items, and so that's kind of how it would approach. And so for each one of those projects that we've designated, the reasons why we want it, where it's located, and then obviously the estimated cost for implementing something like that. So
If you're applying for grants and this type of thing, having a study is like one checkbox.
yes.
What are the other checkbox that we could also be looking into, so that when we do apply for a grant, we've got 8 checks, which puts us up higher into the list or puts us more into
It
it?
really depends on the program that you're applying for. So I mean,
Is there something else other than a study that we need to
No.
be doing? A financial statement?
Some have to do with like,
sometimes there's
what your demographics are, are you in a
Yeah.
risk area, are you in a high, whatever they decide, whatever the grant is tailored to try to fit the box. If you fit that box based on, like, one of the things is they're giving, if economic development occurs in underserved areas, they give real estate
environmental
tax.
justice locations.
Yeah,
so
different,
it's
some
not-
things like that.
Does that mean that we should be certifying one part of the town that way so that it's there, or?
Well, a lot of that's designated by the state, and that's just an example of one criteria item for like,
Mhm.
say we're thinking of, say I want to get money to build a park in a certain location. Not only do I have research information that shows that, hey, we have kind of a plan approach to how we could do this. There's been research done to show that this is a good location. Sometimes depending on the grant program, they may want to know, is it an environmental justice location, and that usually has to do with income levels as well as demographics. So I mean, that's something we really can't control. That's designated by the state. But another example is, I applied for a housing choice capital grant this past May, and so for that grant, they had some prerequisites in terms of the town had to be a housing choice community. which was something we applied for to basically show that the town has so much growth in 5 years. And then additional kind of points to that were certain like housing items, like do you have an inclusionary zoning bylaw, do you have an active housing production plan, and so forth. So depending on what the grant is kind of how they designate how.
I'll be
many-
very different, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that leads me to a question. Do we have any, you know, expanding on Danelle's question, forget about checking the boxes. Do we have any fatal flaws that are gonna hold us out of some of these grants because of where we are and where we stand in terms of some of those,
Puts us out of the grant.
benefits that puts us
Yeah,
out
but
of
they're
the running
uncontrollable,
for
like
things?
house median
Yeah, but
income.
if they're out of our control, which I get, then are we still looking at grants that we basically have no shot at because of our standing?
Can I back us up for 1 second? Who's writing the grants? Is it just,
State usually, federal.
no, but that's the grants we're applying for, but who
I would
from-
probably be applying for the grants depending on what
Okay.
it is.
Do we have like a grant, I mean, a lot of towns hire firms to write grants for them, or bring in grants, or look
I
at
mean, each
grants?
department kind of has their own
Person.
needs. So I mean, like the rec department may apply for their own grants, and the
Right.
police and fire apply for their own. So I would apply for something that's applicable to
Gotcha.
planning,
Economic.
community
Yeah.
development. So,
Yeah.
um,
Sure, you've written one or two.
yeah. So
There's a lot.
I mean, it really depends on what's out there, and not to veer off topic too much, but there is, I don't know if anyone's heard of like the Arpa funding. It's I'm not gonna mess up the acronym, but it's like American Recovery Arpa Planning Act or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. So that's something that I know the town we're kind of bracing for and kind of trying to figure out. A lot of communities, so this is federal funding that essentially the communities we live to use for certain recovery programs. Some communities are looking into maybe even hiring a consultant to help manage what they can and can't do with this funding. So, I mean, that could be something down the line. Again,
So Patrick, that was in the, I think it was in the Patriot Ledger today.
okay.
There's $400 million of federal funding for 4 different counties,
Mhm.
Bristol, Norfolk. And they're gonna try to combine using the same accounting firms, so they're not all doing the same thing and paying the same money. So Norfolk County's gonna have like 127 million to figure out what to do with the federal funding.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's something I don't want to speak too much to because honestly, it really is, I don't know.
It was vague as to,
Up in the air.
Fresh
Yeah.
news, yeah.
So from the town side, obviously being able to figure out, our percentage and what we can and can't do of that could probably, they may dip into some of these areas, some of these action items potentially, but obviously that's very
I would
much
love
up
to
in the
see,
air.
I mean, I can't imagine that we lose every attempt we make at getting a grant, right?
Yeah.
I would like to know what we're doing with the funds that we get, that we've already won these grants. What have we done?
What program have we applied for?
I don't know, you tell me.
Well, some of these grants that we've gotten are to do studies,
Yeah.
right?
Most of 'em.
And so now we get a grant to do a study, and then we do the study, and then.
And sometimes the grants are so specific and
Yeah.
have so many rules, if you're not following them, then you're not really
You're
eligible
right.
for more grants.
We did a grant about, or we got one about, maybe 40 years ago, but it was to put out a promotional brochure, and we got, I don't know, $2,500 or something like that.
Yeah.
So
So if this study comes back, is it gonna pinpoint a direction that Walpole needs to go into, or what list of what
Yeah.
needs to be done, so that, all right, item number one's facade redevelopment. So we're gonna go after facade redevelopments, and if we're gonna go after facade redevelopments, what other items do we need to have in line? Like, do we have to prove, do we need to put a specific study about how bad our facades are in place in order to do that?
Yeah,
And
that
go
would-
take pictures of fronts and.
I was gonna say, take them on a
stuff like
ride
that.
down Main Street.
No, I'm just saying, this
Yeah, it would depend
one
on the
additional
That'll do it.
program,
study.
but I think, having done this, having gone through this process and shown that that's an action item that we want to address,
Mhm.
that's one point. After this, I'll forward out the link to the local rapid recovery programs page, where essentially there's a listing of grant programs. So they are trying to kind of assemble and designate, all right, now that you've gone through this process, here's some ongoing current programs. I think what they find from this whole thing for all the participating communities will hopefully yield additional programs that are more geared to maybe areas that they haven't been promoting or they don't have.
Is this included in that study?
Well, what
The,
is-
the study they do points you that there are program or grants available?
Yeah, so I can show you I'll forward the page
Yeah.
out of the grant program, and I mean, there's existing pages right there now of certain,
Grants that are
programs that
available.
we can look into, for sure.
So is I'm gonna speak in very layman's terms right now, because I'm tired of all the mumbo jumbo, not that you're giving me any mumbo jumbo, because I respect everything that you're doing.
Right.
How do we get, what if we don't get any grants? Does Walpole do nothing? How do other towns do this? How do other towns better themselves
Better
without
zoning.
having to run around getting grants to do another study? I drive through other towns and I say, holy crap, look at this place.
You want me, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
If, I haven't looked at the bylaw for downtown, but a lot of bylaws downtown limit the amount of apartments you can do. So a lot of towns like the Wellesleys, the Dedhams, that have revitalized their downtown,
It's all about zoning.
they made their zoning, profitable for developers. So if the zoning says you can do X, and a developer comes in and says, well, I can't make any money, I'm gonna lose money in that project, it's gonna stay in perpetuity in a certain building state. If we change our zoning to allow, and the trend right now is mixed use, 4 stories, first floor, retail, 3 stories above
Right.
apartments, that feeds the first floor, businesses. And you have to allow for, I don't understand in a lot of downtowns why so many towns harp on floor area ratio, which is basically the amount of apartments you can put in a building. Other than height, setbacks and parking, I don't why limit the amount of apartments? If you have a parcel, sometimes people are afraid of hearing more apartments, which I understand that, but in the right areas, they make sense. So
Right.
I would have to look at the zoning bylaw, maybe you could.
That's a different action item, so like, to your point, Mark, I mean, there's items we can be proactive on and change on our own, we don't need
Do we
to
have an
go-
FAR limitation in Walpole downtown?
I
If there's
believe
none,
it's-
then what I just said.
Yeah, and so it is allowed for, mixed use is allowed in the downtown, I believe it's, 3.5, so it's the,
In fact, there's a
residential
ratio
portion
of
is-
how much retail goes down on the first floor versus how much residential.
Well,
Yeah,
so-
FAR is how many units you could have.
Well, see,
combined.
Floor area
Floor
Well, see,
ratio.
here's
I
the
don't
thing.
think
It's related
it's
to
not
the
really
site
that.
area.
here's the
Site
reason I
area.
asked the question.
Yep.
Because I think as the Economic Development Commission, I mean, grants are great. Go after as many grants as you can get your hands on, because God knows there's a lot of them out there now, because, you put the word recovery into anything and everybody needs to get the money. I don't know what we're recovering from, and I'm not being facetious. I see a lot of downtown business, I saw a lot of people struggling, but I see a lot of downtown businesses that are doing fairly well. So, a lot of other towns need more recovery than Walpole does, I'm gonna tell you that, and if somebody wants to slap me for saying that on TV, they can. Walpole needs a lot of things though, and I think that we need to, as an Economic Development Commission, one of the things we should be doing is looking for the reasons why we are not able to make these changes to the downtown that everybody wants, barring any grants. What can we do, whether it's changing the zoning or whatever it is, to make these things happen, even if we never get a grant? It has to happen. We can't be dependent on
Well,
grants and studies.
yeah, but the town has to be willing to spend money to make this happen.
Or exactly.
Or
So-
if you
that's-
change zoning and it became profitable for a developer to come in
Yeah.
and
Right.
rehab and knock down some of these buildings, we all know which ones are the eyesores.
Yeah.
They're not gonna do it if it's not profitable.
Right.
Right.
Going along with what John said, several years ago, the Walpole Mall came in and they wanted to put a pretty big sign with all the stores listed there. And they couldn't do it because of zoning. And you go by there now, there's no big sign. You don't know what's in that mall as you drive up Route 1.
Yeah, well, they change the rules up there all the time. I mean, they told CVS they couldn't have a pad site. So CVS said, all right, the hell with it, we'll move to Patriot Place. And then they put up Texas Roadhouse on a pad site. So but I get you. I mean, there's a lot of zoning that I think could be inhibiting any growth downtown, any changes.
Oh, yeah.
So John, you're on the money. And I think that as I said, while grants are great, and we do need to pursue grants, we need to make something happen for real and find out why they're not happening and start to initiate, maybe from this committee, maybe sponsor some changes, whether it be a town meeting, where we say, hey, we've looked at this, and maybe talk to some people in the planning board and say, hey, if we make this zoning change, this could spark a lot of change downtown. And just get some action items rolling in the right direction that people must deal with. Not just talk about, but, you know, if you put something in town meeting, they have to deal with it.
Yeah, it
To
has
that
to
point,
get
I mean,
there.
it-
Has to get
Has
there,
to get
right.
there.
But,
That would be, I mean, that's a great idea in terms of looking at, you know, what we have for our, you know, within the highway business, central business district, and maybe even industrial. Take a look at what we have in place for zoning, both, you know, dimensional regulations as well as whatever, uses are allowed. And, you know, take a deeper look and see what we can change that, maybe vet it out to, you know, to business owners that are property owners within those areas.
or developers and say, hey,
yeah.
what zoning changes do you see in Walpole that would make you more inclined to move forward with a project? And they'll tell you, straight out. They'll say, well, if I could do this, that'd be great.
We had that on Route 1 with the hotel next to Applebee's. They didn't get the zoning bylaws they needed changed, that I variance.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
height, wasn't it?
Yeah.
On a,
A
Yes,
little bit
that
of
was
a
the
water
fake
issue too
wall.
with Sharon, but look, we're not zoning, and
Right.
zoning did not
That was,
budge.
that was, that
It
was
was more of
not
a
smart
regulatory
to not
issue, that
have
was
that
it.
hotel there.
Well, they're working on the master plan soon to be revised, which is gonna include the CBD.
Right.
So that's gonna affect a lot of the zoning issues that you're talking about.
Zoning bylaws are usually looked at in a master plan update.
There's gonna be
When's
more
the master
housing.
plan happening?
What?
When's it happening?
Well, that's part of what
Starting-
Donnell's got it
Oh, okay.
on
Next
too.
Tuesday. We're meeting next Tuesday, right? Is that right?
Either late September, early October.
Oh, okay.
Just
Yeah.
finalizing a first, a date.
I say,
Yeah.
when's that happen? I didn't expect,
like
I didn't
next
expect
week.
next Tuesday
I
to
think
be the
it's like-
answer. I'm like,
yeah.
yes.
No, yeah,
It's in another week or two.
We do want to get that going
Yeah.
as soon as possible. There's a lot of, you know, we want to utilize the fall for doing community outreach for sure.
I guess my pain in the rear end view, which I often have, is we have to stop thinking in theory. We have to stop thinking in general as being the only thing we do. And we have to start looking at what we want Walpole Center to be, and then start making substantive changes to make that happen. Because we could talk about it forever, we could get grants to,
Right.
what did we spend the last grant money on? AstroTurf and a couple of picnic tables, and, you know, that's great, that's what she had the money for, and she did something with it. That's one thing about Ashley, she's not afraid to move.
Right.
That's what the money was there for, and that's what she did, but we have to stop worrying about
That's.
grants
when-
being the only way, and we
Right.
have to start moving in town to make things happen, so.
That's why we're doing a master plan.
Yeah, we've heard that for a long
I was gonna say,
time.
master plans sometimes don't always come to.
We've heard that for a long
I
time.
know, because nobody wants to spend money to take any action on the master plan.
That's why we have to make things more amenable,
So how about going forward then,
so
maybe this
developers
board.
can move forward.
I know, I agree.
Matt, would you mind starting to look at that downtown, what the FAR setbacks are? And I'll work with you on that.
Yeah.
We can maybe make a suggestion for a change in the zoning bylaw to, maybe talk with the planning board and selectmen, so we can move forward and get
Yeah,
going.
find out where we are now, and find out if it's holding people
It
back,
would be a
and
great
then,
conversation.
Look at
Interesting
Union
to
and
have
West. What are you
maybe
talking
with
about?
The building commissioner tomorrow, as well as one of the members of the planning.
There's no setback. They're gonna
It's-
get whatever they want.
Yeah, so.
It's,
Thanks,
Look at
Matt.
Union and West. You got no setback.
yeah, but Union West, the rules that they did there, I mean, that was a,
You don't need setbacks in CBDs usually.
having been on planning
That's what I'm
board
saying. I
then,
don't think that's really an issue.
but
I think-
having
I
been on the
think
planning
floor
board at
area
that time, I'll
would be
tell
one.
you,
Which what?
that was a what's
Area
there
issue.
now issue. But Union West was a, look what we're staring at
Pullback and
now
all that is
versus
parking
what we could get.
requirements.
all right, all
But
right.
for
That's
Main
what it
Street, I
is.
think it would be
We
different.
do have a relaxation in
Yeah,
parking
yeah,
requirements for
but
commercial.
that's
within the
all
central
part of
business
what's
district
coming
and
up.
within
There shouldn't be any
There's none.
for
For
commercial.
commercial,
So-
but we
So
do
can
have
I-
the same
are we
parking requirements
losing
for residential.
More businesses like
It's like two.
Santander,
One
Bank of
per,
America.
Two per
There's a
unit.
lot of
no, it's one per bedroom.
TTs. Like there's a lot of
Yeah, which is a
empty-
lot.
If you do a two-bedroom, you have to have
Buildings.
two.
I think
That's a lot.
and I agree with you there, and I'm not sure why.
And Liberty had to go for variance.
Bank is a whole different
right,
thing, because
right.
everybody's just
Definitely
virtual now.
Right.
They don't need to spend money on retail space.
Right. I'm not sure what the issues are there.
And TT's has to be eventually taken
But the only
by
problem
eminent
they bump
domain,
up
for God's
against is
sake.
there's not enough
There's gotta be a
parking to
certain
accommodate the people that
timeline
come
with
in.
that.
Unless
There
you start
is.
doing parking
What about
garages
health
and
code
getting
issues?
more
That building looks like it's
parking
ready to fall
for
down.
overnight
Didn't,
residents.
It won't fall
Barry-
down before you die from the
Barry
mold
had
that's
something
inside
to
it.
It's been
But isn't that a
bucking
health
heads
code
that
issue?
way, you know?
Because it had
And that
timber over,
discussion
was
all
it
came
East
up with
Walpole, they
Union
finally took
Western
some
Liberty
property.
when they came in.
That was.
What did they
Both
take?
went for variances.
Huh?
One was
What'd they take? The clock tower
1.5
property? Is that what you're
to
talking about?
No, something else. I think it
1.2
was
parking
next
ratio.
to Peggy Lavin or
Variances that
something.
they-
Oh, yeah, I know, yeah.
But that house that they
The
boarded
house,
up and
yeah.
everything?
There's something on the books that says the town can come and take a commercial property if it's not being used the way it's supposed to be.
What,
After
no,
That's not gonna happen.
not used the way it's supposed to be, if it's dilapidated and not
Well,
maintained, not,
right.
not what
I
you
think
just
that
said.
Well, there's
was-
a,
I mean,
as a
if you can use it as a
dilapidation.
gas station versus a retail store, they can't come and take it because they want a retail store.
What building are we talking about?
Well,
It's a
Buy it.
town-wide ordinance
Right.
that if your building is dilapidated and not maintained and safe,
Oh, we have a bunch of
fire
those on
hazard,
South
the town
Street that
can
are
come
supposed
in
to come
and
down
take it
20
by
years ago,
eminent
they're still
domain.
sitting there.
What building are you
Can I
talking
make a
about?
suggestion?
Are you gonna
Okay.
make a motion to close the meeting?
No,
What-
no,
what
no,
about
no.
teenies? Yeah.
But I think that we should have a separate meeting, just to talk about
That's Chinese.
what the issues are that we see and how it is
CDs was a fun place to go.
related to zoning.
Well, and I agree with you there, because
Just that
to your point, we could
specifically.
discuss this all night, but we really don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. I'd like to find out if there's a way that the EDC could sponsor on our own some sort of a process where we could talk to developers and have the developers look at our zoning and find out what the limitations are, and find out what they would like to see. Not that we're just gonna go to bat and just have it willy-nilly, but do some research and find some actionable items that we can present as zoning changes to try to spur some interest in the downtown while they're developing the
Yeah.
master plan.
Well,
It's parking and FAR. I'm
yeah, but it's also not, for example, there was a developer that wanted to buy I don't know what the property up there is, yeah.
Woodwork.
Thank you.
Walpole
Yes,
Woodworkers?
yes. And they were trying to work a deal, they wanted to build apartments, and they couldn't work something out with the town, and it had to do with like water and sewer, or they wanted him to pay for something, or, it was not, the town was not being developer friendly.
Well, they didn't want that there.
Right, no, they didn't want to.
And they almost couldn't get it done, so they changed it over to an AQV, but I shouldn't be speaking about that.
No, I mean, that's, there you go, that's why it's not developer
So
friendly.
Do we have a reputation?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Norwood is
Yeah.
the opposite, and so are other towns. And then Walpole's known
We
to
have
be
a very
non-developer.
singular and unique reputation for being not developer friendly. But I've noticed that it's started to go the other direction a little bit. Whether or not it's getting better for developers, I don't know, but I know that there's been a lot more development in the last couple of years. So people have started to see the light, I think. But then you don't get a hotel on Route 1, so you wonder what the issues are. But again, if there are things that are blatantly obvious that are slowing down the, I guess, organic development of our downtown, because it's very difficult to get the town to take over a central business district and change everything. But if we can make it so developers can come in and work with the town and say, hey, wouldn't this be great? On the Santander, that's yours, right?
Yeah.
So wouldn't this be great here? Well, let's work with whoever the owner is and the developer, and we'll make it look like this maybe. But if there are zoning issues in place, it's never gonna happen. So you're exactly right, John. We just have to figure out what we can do, because our whole job is, hey, how does economic development help
Well,
spur this growth?
not necessarily what we can do. Let's figure out what we want it to be first. What is it that you're, like, what is it you want to see?
I wanna see Wellesley or Dedham, that's what I wanna see.
But
You
specifically.
gotta bring a whole bunch of
I know you were
money
asking,
into town.
I know you were asking me.
Specifically, what
in
you
a
wanna see is a
theoretic-
vibrant
Yeah.
downtown.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanna see people
Vibrant
walking
commercial
around. I
wise,
want-
vibrant residential wise,
And
and,
vibrant downtown, things that have in common are you have mixed-use buildings
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
bring people to the town.
That looks
Right.
good.
Gotta have
But I
good
think about
parking.
this, what do we have downtown besides restaurants, a lot of places to get your nails done, and some haircut places, right? Like,
Right.
there's nothing. You put a Starbucks down there or Brothers like
oh, yes.
Medfield
The-
has.
Well, that was part of that 2019
need-
study.
Yeah.
We should get a bookstore
Starbucks
downstairs, we
needs drive.
need a hardware store downtown, we need a grocery store
Right.
downtown.
But the problem is,
Reasons
We've
we
got
don't-
but
meat market,
you
fish
don't think,
market.
you don't think Starbucks has looked at downtown Walpole? And they said, no.
Isn't that probably not
But in
enough
order to have the
Right,
business.
but
to
now
be
there
attractive
is.
to
I was gonna
the
say,
community, you gotta have
yeah,
the residences gonna
Now
support
there
it.
Everyone I know would love a Starbucks.
You gotta have the residences
Right.
to support
Drive-through.
it,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, in these, what is it? What's the one closest to CVS? This new building has restaurant space in the bottom. They're advertising for restaurants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
on,
mean Liberty Village?
Liberty
Is that
Village.
Liberty or
Yeah.
Union West?
Lib-
I can't.
Liberty.
Liberty.
Yeah.
But you know, Mark, when you were saying to develop, I don't think we're looking to develop downtown. I think the word you should be using is redevelop.
Redevelop. That's, you know what, you're exactly right. That's what I mean.
The town is
Redevelop.
more or less developed, not
It
to
is
say
what
a
it is.
maximum.
Yes.
But a lot of it, it's a redevelopment. It's not
You're exactly right.
coming in, and you gotta look at that. Because if you say the word redevelopment, I think you're thinking about more about the dilapidated buildings being rebuilt as opposed to that vacant lot.
No,
being
you're
taken.
exactly right. Redevelop
You
is
know.
the word that I think of when I was saying development. You're exactly right. It's redevelopment. We need to
Right.
take what we have and turn it into, put programs together to have developers redevelop it and turn it into what we hope Walpole Center can be. That's the best way to put it, I think.
Just a thought too, you know, I haven't heard a lot about it, is thinking about targeting the kids. You know, my daughter just recently starts walking out of Johnson and comes to this downtown, and then she keeps walking, and they go to somewhere else, and I'm like, why aren't you hanging around downtown? And there's a, yeah, but I'm like, there's like nothing to do, and I'm like, imagine if there was an
Because you don't
arcade
give
when
your-
we were kids.
It's because you don't give your daughter $40 to get her nails
Yeah,
done.
no, she's not doing that. But remember Pete's Dream used to have the bowling alley downstairs, so that was an attraction for kids. But the kids need something, you know, like Foxborough's got the skate park, you know, so that's something. And again, you got your kids hanging out down here doing stuff, and then the parents come and pick them up, and then they come and spend money to go to dinner and stuff. So I think that's something that we should be thinking about for downtown
I
too.
think we should, and I don't disagree there, but I think if we try to find out what we want it to be and then let it develop, and then kind of open the doors and grease the skids and let it develop or
You know,
redevelop organically, I
here's a
think that's the
thought.
way to do it.
With the new Route 1A fields that we have, more and more of the kids' programs are going there and they're getting used. And I wonder if Stonefield is really needed the way it is today. And it's right in the heart of downtown parking needs. And there's ball fields at 1A. There's 4 ball fields for baseball and softball. So
The Walpole Rec uses that field quite a
I
bit, though.
understand, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm with
gotta
you.
Look at the land we have and what is it being used for, and is there a better value that doesn't impact or hurt
Well,
anybody?
I'm with
that's
you.
been tried. I mean,
I'm
when
just
we were
saying
doing
things are
the,
different now that the Route 1A fields are there, and we have a place
Yeah.
to put kids. That is a very nice
One-
$5 million facility.
You know, I'm not in charge of, or even
How much?
4.5.
7, 9,
There was
11.
some- There was some funds used earlier. The last round pass was 4.5.
I guess my thought to that was, you run the risk, and we had talked about this before on planning board about a parking garage there, what a great spot that would be, or if we put retail on the back side of the Main Street stores and face inward. The problem that you might run into there in losing that green space is turning it into kind of like an Attleboro, where you just have parking and stores and everything everywhere. And then everything gets built up, and all of a sudden your downtown is so busy and congested. And this is just a personal opinion, but I think the town values that green space. Could we add more parking? Absolutely. Should we put a parking garage somewhere? No doubt. But I think there's something about that green space that people like. And I'm not saying that it shouldn't be used, but just as one person, I would hate to see that go away, and I don't know
I
why.
think it's a nice
Just something
breakup,
about it,
and if you
I
live in
just
that
don't-
area, it's.
Yeah, I don't know why I would hate to see that go away, but I would.
You
And-
can
All
build
it
it,
have to stay, can some
No,
of
I
it
know.
go away?
you can build around it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like I
that
said,
was
you-
one of the
What if it
options
wasn't
for
even parking?
public
You're talking about
safety,
kids.
and
Could you put a skate park there?
Isn't it a dog
Yes.
park? Like you could.
they wouldn't put the
It
police
doesn't
station
necessarily have to
there.
be parking, but it's valuable land in the center of our town. that
Right. It's
right
beautiful.
now,
Yeah.
Really all that
They
needed
wouldn't
for
put
the use that it is.
Nope.
Yeah, it's
Wouldn't
a
do
tough one. It is a tough one. Because you put a parking garage there and then it's gone forever.
I don't think
So do you
so.
wanna just, do you think, for the interest of time, we all think of some ideas and bring them next meeting and try to, along with zoning, formulate a plan, what we wanna see, what we don't wanna see, what we think's best?
You know, for example, the farmer's market, that's right behind the salon there. It's really tiny, it's very condensed, and there's not enough space, and there's only few. What if the farmer's market got moved to the grass and became a bigger deal, and more local groups could be part of it, and the parking will facilitate if it's there? And then poor Keith Tracy, who's got his little hair salon, doesn't have all his parking spaces taken up by people that are parking to go to the farmer's market.
Farmer's market, yeah.
Who runs the farmer's market in
No
town?
idea.
Rich McCarthy in the rec department, somebody in the rec department, I believe.
But
Is
could
it
reach
area?
out to them and
Is it
find
area?
out
I
if
don't
space is
know, I know,
adequate.
it's already-
I mean,
it
he
used to
loses
be-
parking
It's the
spaces
girl
every
there, the
Saturday.
lady.
Yeah,
It used
but
to
the
be
visit-
us,
Used to
right?
be Ashley.
It used to be us, right. Now I think it's the rec department, and
Is it busy? Do they get a lot of
they
traffic
do,
there?
I've walked by there on occasion, yes, they have been busy.
I think if they had more to offer, they'd be busier,
Yeah, of course.
you know, I think there's
Take care.
one
Bye,
place to
John.
get honey, there's
Yeah.
one place
Bye,
to
John.
get a snack, one place might have fresh vegetables.
Good job.
Yeah.
But, you
Hey,
know,
quick question, and then I know we have to wrap up. Meg, on the committee to, that are gonna be talking about the master plan, do they have a timetable?
I haven't, it hasn't started yet. I don't know.
So it's 365 days from the initiation of the contract. So we're probably looking at late spring, early summer. We would love to wrap up the portion with the consultant.
And then it's 365 days from then?
No.
No, it's ongoing.
That's
right
the
now.
wrap-up.
That's the
Yeah.
wrap up.
Okay. So ideally, we would have by next summer, a new master plan.
Has to be voted on.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I think.
So if we don't get it into Springtown meeting, then we'll have to push it to fall.
I don't know if they can vote on that on the fall. Isn't there certain things?
No, you can vote
Fall,
on,
I think it's spring.
it's usually taken as finance and zoning, but it's not a requirement.
Oh.
You can do it.
They may just, that's important, they might put it on there.
So it doesn't look like Springtown meeting would be enough
No.
time. So fall would be ideal, but then maybe possibly following Springtown meetings
I
for
mean,
vote.
master plan updates can be 12 months is pretty much a very short time. It's usually an 18-month process to
Okay.
master plan.
So we could be looking at 2 years then. All right.
There's still plenty of work to be done in the meantime. You don't need to wait to just.
Yeah.
No, I don't wanna wait. I'm trying to figure out,
Yeah.
trying to figure out what we can do that would be impactful, knowing that that was looming, and, you know, I don't wanna spin our wheels, not knowing what the master plan is gonna look like, if we're trying to do other things that might fly in the face of that master plan. However, we've talked about and heard about master plans. I've been here for 18 years. I've been hearing it for 18 years. I'm not saying they're not gonna do it. What I'm saying is, should that slow us down in trying to
No,
find
so
other ways?
No, it shouldn't.
well, you brought up a great idea about bringing developers, or maybe even talking to. Just on top of my head, I know Phil Mackey is one of the attorneys in town that's usually representing developers. That's a great resource to probably talk to about.
I think Dan Merrickin is as well,
Dan
because
Merrickin
he
is-
knows
yeah.
the zoning
Yeah.
just as well and what the setbacks are and trying to place something
Yeah.
somewhere.
I think those are great resources to kind of bring in, or at least have a conversation with about.
I think
what
both
are
of them would
problems that
be
you find.
happy to put their input in.
Yeah.
What if you worked, like spend some money, the EDC, on actually building a model? You know, like one of those things that it looks like scaled to life, you know, to see little people walking around, and if you had
Yeah,
like
like
this
an
whole
old-
table of this is what downtown should look like in 5 to 10 years, that would really get some people
So-
moving forward.
In Norwood, when we passed we did a mixed-use overlay district for our downtown, and we used digital renderings, and it was
bet.
great. Yeah, it looked, gave people an idea of what exactly like a step back is, and create like the to remove like a canyon effect and how some of these buildings, the landmark buildings, would look with additional levels. It definitely helped for sure. And I know in Islington, when they passed their zoning there, that it was somewhat contentious from what I heard, but it really helped their project because they had the developer who was basically like, you passed my zoning, this is what, I have a project geared up and ready to go for you. So it was kind of, it was, I think, a lot more appetizing for the town meeting to pass that zoning when they know that not only here's what it will look like, but, you know, the developer is ready to go with that.
And that really
project.
changed Islington. That-
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
Night and
it's-
day down there.
It's nice to be able to touch and feel the physical model,
Mhm.
but I think a digital one would be much more accessible. They would,
Today's world, yeah.
you know, yeah.
Yeah, same thing. That's fine, as long as you could do that.
All right.
But that is, I guess, the long of the short of it. That is the rapid recovery meeting tomorrow on Thursday. Like I said, that's either in person or on
No,
Zoom.
wait,
It's
Thursday.
Tuesday.
Thursday, yeah, Thursday.
Thursday. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And what was the last item on your agenda was just
I had
updates?
department updates. So I mean, right now, I'm working through a few different projects. One was I did get a shared streets grant that I've been trying slowly but surely. I'm trying to get that implemented before the end of the calendar year.
What is it?
So this is shared streets and spaces. So it's about $24,000 to do both streetscape and
Gotcha. I remember that, yeah.
kind of improvements to pedestrian pathways. So I'm focusing kind of on the alleyways that exist within the town. And
Oh, you know what? On that, I don't wanna drag this out, but I was actually up in Meredith, New Hampshire. You ever been up there?
Yeah.
So they have little pathways that go between certain areas, and they've filled them, they're beautifully landscaped, but they also fill them with art from local artists, sculptures. And I took some pictures. I'll forward them to you. I'm sure you've seen them though, but, you know, it might be, cause I know that the Downtown Destination Group is constantly, you know, doing things in the art world and trying to, so it might be a good marriage to try to get local artists to put, and try to maybe dress up those pathways and walkways, kinda like Meredith does, which looks awesome.
yeah, and that is one of the items that I wanted to look into in utilizing murals and public
Yeah.
art. Additionally, some hard costs in terms of bollard replacements, new concrete paths, and some additional figures. So that right now, I've talked to a few different property owners. I'll be in one, and I'm working with the engineering department as well as talking to some contractors on getting pricing for a few things. So that's something I need to wrap up before the calendar year. I'd like to wrap it up hopefully by November, so at least it can be utilized this fall. In addition to that, the Summer Street decision, I don't know if everyone's heard of that. That process was, this is the Summer Street 40B. The original decision was appealed by the applicant. It went to mediation. A new decision, a revised decision was issued. And so essentially what happened from there is that we were able to record new units to our subsidized housing inventory. The amount of units that we were able to record helped facilitate a 2-year safe harbor, which was certified by DHCD. So
Good.
that's hopefully going to give us a little bit of a break to be more proactive on on a couple subsidized housing initiatives. And so
What did they get, 300 up there?
268 was the final number, 226 of which will count towards the subsidized housing inventory.
Good.
So,
It's better than the 500 they were asking for.
Whatever. Why don't you start a bike week too down here? That'll be good.
It's not
Gonna
that
be
bad.
brutal.
Okay.
Oh,
It's not that bad.
yeah,
Oh
you know,
my
other than
God.
that,
traffic down there now.
just continuing.
Okay.
So,
All right, great. Anybody wanna make a motion to adjourn? I know you do.
I do.
Second?
Adjourn- Motion to adjourn.
Second?
He's second.
All those in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I think so.
Right, excellent.
Ah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.